You can't save them all. Today, we're going to be discussing a savior complex. Well, we're not really going to be discussing a savior complex, but it's essentially what we're discussing. What I mean by you can't save them all is that you can't save everybody. And today, I've got my own personal experience and story as per usual, but I've also got a couple notes on my screen about savior complexes. Now, I'm not going to go and break it down like I broke down loneliness. I don't need to read off all the things with the savior complex. I'm just going to grab a couple points to make it, align with my experience and from other things I've seen. But realistically, what I mean by you can't save everyone is more specifically, you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. In the famous words of J. Cole, don't save her. She don't want to be saved, don't save her. And I feel like the more I experience and talk to different people and, grow up and live, I meet people who don't actually want to be different. And there's nothing wrong with that, because, in life, an ignorance is bliss approach is almost beneficial. You know what they say, like the smarter you get, the more of a curse, or, knowledge is a curse. It is true, the more you learn, the more you tend to hate, the more you tend to despise, the uglier the world looks. So in a way, being able to either accept that and see life for what it is, or just have an ignorance is bliss approach and look at life as just face value, is actually beneficial, not only for your mental health, but for your life in general. However, there's obviously going to be an issue by, just being negligent and just being stupid. However, it's each to their own. Like, I'm not going to sit here and judge one form of life, because at the end of the day, some of those people really be some of the most mellow and down-to-earth people ever. And I respect it. However, when I say you can't save everyone, I'm specifically referring to a certain type of thing certain people like to do. So, the other day, I was thinking, right? I was thinking about people I no longer interact with. I was thinking about people I've let go. And I was thinking about this one friend I have. Now, this one friend I have, he's not really a close friend, but he's good friends with some of my close friends, and he was someone I used to be close with. I'll spare you the details of our past discrepancies just for the sake of time. But pretty much, he'd done a couple of things to kind of fuck me over. But at the same time, it wasn't anything monumental enough for me to never speak to him again. But it was still enough for me to be like, alright, what the fuck are you doing? There was a period where I didn't speak to him. Eventually, we kind of rekindled a bit, and, he seemed to have gotten a bit better. But one of the main things that he has a problem with is drug usage, specifically with weed. And the problem is, right, when you are reliant on something, whether it's weed, alcohol, coffee, whatever, it becomes kind of an integral part of your life. And you start to find that you can't do things or enjoy things without it. A perfect example of this is in my job. There's rarely a day where I'm not drinking coffee just to get through certain parts of the day. I don't require the coffee to get through said, task. However, it makes a significant difference, even if it's only just to wake me up to want to do the task. But sometimes I feel as if I rely on it to actually function, which in a form is an addiction. Even if I can stop right now, and there's been times where I've just stopped drinking it for 2, 3, 4 weeks. I can do it, yet I understand that in the terms of addictions out there, it's one of the ones where, it's not negatively impacting my life because I don't increase my dosage. I'm not drinking 3 or 4 coffees a day. I'm drinking maybe 1 double shot or 1 single shot and maybe a low stim pre-workout or something like that. I don't exceed a certain amount. And then if I do end up taking too much, sometimes I'll just, I'll dial it down or I'll take a break, right? Not trying to justify my caffeine addiction, but I can at least, claim that I have it under wraps. Point regardless, there's a difference between being unable to cope without it and, just doing it. Like in moderation, people drink, every so-and-so event, people will smoke someone else's vape at a social event or have a cigarette or have a joint here and there. And there's nothing wrong with that because everything's in moderation. Just like you can eat fast food in moderation, have sugar in moderation, have coffee, blah, 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 whatever, right? When you start to dabble in that realm of consistent use, whether, for example, for weed, you use it to sleep or you use alcohol, just to after a bad day or something like that, that's when issues can start to arise. So the first kind of thing I want to discuss today about saving people and how you can't save them is that you can't change someone if they don't want to change. And it was actually certain musical artists that actually taught me that. which you'd think I would have learnt it from other places, but it really was from people's music when I started to understand that you can't change someone whose life is already so ingrained in them. Just like you can't change someone's habits from scrolling on social media all day. You can delete all social apps, but you'll feel the intense need to go back because you feel like you're missing out on stuff, or you feel like people are messaging you, or this or that. Like, it's a very integral part of a lot of people's lives. It's very easy to just say you're going to stop something, but then, the second someone's like, oh, look at this video I sent you, you're going to be back on the website, you're going to be re-downloading the app, you're going to fall into the trap again. There was a period where I deleted Instagram for like 3 weeks. Then I got back on it because I was going to some like event, and I re-downloaded the app to look at some stuff. I still have the app, and I'm now scrolling again. Not as much as before, but it's still happening. So the point is, it's very easy to just fall back into it when the situation is set up. Obviously, I want to change, but at the same time, it's difficult. Just like my friend who says he wants to change, yet it's difficult. However, the difference is there are people who will continue to try and people who won't. And it depends what realms. Like, it's such a great area when talking on stuff like this, because I can easily say, oh, well, just quit or just stop, it's good for your health. When people can say I'm a hypocrite because I, drink a lot of coffee and I don't stop coffee, or, I'll do a lot of scrolling and I won't stop scrolling. It's like, you can never judge someone for the addiction if you have an addiction of your own. The only problem is when you start to look at it that way, it becomes a little bit more of a kind of complex thing, because every addiction is not on the same scale. It's like you can't compare a heroin addiction to drinking coffee. I mean, I guess you kind of can if you're taking a gram of coffee a day, or a kilogram, sorry. But even then, it's just are you going to jump to those extremes, or you're just going to kind of look at it at face value? Point is, when you start to look at it that way, you start to realize people won't change, but they like the idea of change. I actually saw the guy today, and then he was telling me that he had stopped for a week. He's taken breaks and he's stopped here and there, but even though he told me he would stop, I know that within a week he's going to be back on it. Or if it's not that week, it's the week after. And it's not because I don't think he wants to change and stop. It's just some people won't make the step themselves to save himself. And he knows that if he gets a call from that one friend or that other friend, that it's going to end up leading to smoking. Just like, some people know that, oh, if I respond to this person, this is going to lead to me and them hanging out. Or if I do this, it's going to lead to that. What you should and shouldn't do to avoid it. Yet, you end up caving because you'll think it will be different this time, and it never is. So that's kind of the more meaning I meant behind you can't save everyone. Because me and my friend had tried to save this guy many times. It got to the point where when I understood finally that you have to inspire someone to change, not try to change them, I haven't seen the result or the reward of doing that yet. And there doesn't need to be a reward when doing something nice for someone to try and inspire change, because you're doing it for yourself. If you inspire yourself and you change yourself, you will inspire others. Even looking at this channel, seeing some of you guys in the comments talking about how much it helps and how you resonate with it, or it can inspire you. It's the same thing, right? If you can inspire one of your friends to do the same just by being yourself and being a better version of you, being more of a human, or I guess more of yourself, that can inspire someone to want to be better like you. In a sense, you become someone's figurative hero. That's kind of the ideal that I decided to take on, because I realized that trying to force someone to change is just stupid, because all it looks like is you looking down on someone because they don't want to change to your ideal version. I understand that I can't change him to be better, even though me and a lot of people want him to be better. I can't do that because that's not how the world works. If that was how the world worked, then I'm sure things would be a lot better. And even if you do manage to change someone, if they didn't do it themselves, it's never going to be an authentic change, and it will never feel like that person actually wants to be where they are. Even if they say they appreciate it, it can lead to a lot of things. People leave because they were pushed too far. People want to eventually, do something else, or maybe they'll go in a deeper, darker hole, whatever. The point is that it comes to a point when, it starts to become a negative thing that bites you in the back, because you forced someone to change so much that they actually ended up wanting to never be around you again. It's kind of a flip of the script thing. Now, I don't really want to talk about it too much, but I feel like I have to mention it because I've already mentioned it previously in the video. If you have a savior complex, you can't save everybody. And it's a very difficult thing to accept, because although I don't think I have a savior complex, I definitely think about being someone who can inspire and save people and this and that. I mean, I'm sure everybody wants to be the main character at some point. But really looking into it, there's a couple of things we can look at savior complexes, which kind of makes it a little bit easier to understand why and to be able to accept that you can't save everyone. One of the main things is compulsive helping, self-neglect, dependency creation, internal validation, and underlying issues. All of these things are a more detailed explanation of what a savior complex is. And by definition, a savior complex is a psychological tendency where individuals feel compelled to help or save others, often to the point of neglecting their own needs and well-being. It's a persistent urge to fix problems or take on responsibility for someone else's well-being, even when it's not appropriate or helpful. This can manifest into excessive volunteering, constant efforts to solve others' issues, or a belief that they are better than others because of their helping behavior. This is the issue. Because of all these things, it can lead to the previous list of things that I've read, and I feel in a way this affected me as much as it might affect the next person. I was trying so hard to shape my friend into a better guy, when in reality, he's got to get there himself. And if he doesn't get there, then he doesn't get there. You can't say to someone, I won't be your friend unless you be better. And you can't say to someone, you know, why, like, let me make your life better, let me do everything for you, because at the end of the day you're gonna feel mentally drained. Even if you refuse to acknowledge it, you will always be excessively pushing yourself for someone else's ideal instead of your own. I don't really know the best way to deal with savior complexes because I don't really go through it as much of an extreme as someone else, but I think you just have to look inward and you have to learn to accept yourself and save yourself, which I think is really the main thing a lot of people tell you to do. But again, I'm not a licensed therapist, so don't listen to me. However, an important thing to mention with savior complexes is that people will feel an immense amount of grief if they aren't able to save someone. And I feel as if, yes, I'm telling you to accept yourself, but you have to accept the reality that you can't always save somebody, because some people don't want to be saved. Although there are going to be people that you probably won't want to interact with, or people that you think aren't worthy of saving and you try to save anyway, you will start to understand the way the world works, and you'll start to understand that, you know, as much as you want to save the next person, you just have to let them do their thing. And if they come to you for help, support them in the best way you know how. Don't overstep them, don't force them to do something they don't want to do. Provide guidance in a way that you think is appropriate per situation. And if someone wants you to take over their life and control them, I guess sure, go for it. But even then, you know, you shouldn't be the person that someone else requires to fix their lives, because at the end of the day, it's going to be them. You can use friends and relationships as motivation, but you should never ever rely on someone to fix your life for you. But anyway, last part of the video I want to touch on before we end off is the other form of saving people. And this is more kind of on the ignorance is bliss side. I specifically want to touch on people who don't see the need to stop doing something. I guess, or more specifically, if we're going to go back to the J. Cole line of, don't save her, she don't want to be saved, don't save her. You got to understand what that really means, right? Essentially, what he's saying, and how I'm taking it and explaining it, is that some people don't want to think too hard. Some people don't want to be saved from their situation, even if it is negligent to their own lives. You know, some people don't want to stop partying and clubbing and doing this and doing that, or doing things that are negative for their life, because they don't feel the need to do it. They feel the need to go and do these things because, you know, you only live once. You're young. You know, you want to go to these events. You want to get with that girl or guy. You want to do this thing. You want to ask that person out. And I say go for it, right? Because the reason you shouldn't save someone who doesn't want to be saved is because you end up just trying to force your ideal onto somebody else. So it kind of dabbles back to what I was saying previously. Yet it's a little bit more like, I guess, easy to look at it as just like, you can't force someone to do something. No matter what realm, you can't force someone to do something. So trying to save someone from a situation they don't want saving from, it's just kind of a bit pretentious. You know, you're trying to force someone to your ideal. You're trying to force someone to be in a situation where they actually didn't say they wanted to be. It's like saying to someone, I want you to go out with me this day when they've already planned something. And they're like, well, no, I'm doing this. But you're like, no, you have to do this because if you don't do it, I'm going to do this. And because you think you're saving them from hanging out with those people you don't like, when all you're doing is just making the person worry about you and having to fuck them over just for your benefit. You know, you feel accomplished when you get people out of these situations, but not all the time those people actually feel good about it. If anything, they feel upset and angry. They feel like they've just been, you know, slapped in the face and pushed to the side. And I think that's a good way to look at it. although maybe that's not the exact way that J. Cole decided to use it, I do think it's an important way to look at it. Or at least for the context of this video, I think it's important to look at it that way. But I mean, hey, I guess some smaller ways we can look at it is you can't save a hoe from being a hoe. And I want to specifically outline a hoe as every single person. I'm not saying a hoe for just ladies or women. I'm saying hoe for everybody. There are male hoes, there are women hoes, there are other gender hoes. It doesn't matter. You can be a hoe and be a person. Alright, like it doesn't matter who you are, you can still be a hoe. You can't save someone who wants to be that way themselves and does those things. You can advise, you can help, you can push them towards help. But if someone makes their decision because of something that's happened to them or they feel the need to do that, you can't overstep the line. You can do as much as you'd like, but at the end of the day, that person needs to save themselves. You know, that's the whole reason why a lot of people tell you to work on yourself, is because you need to look inward and work on yourself and discover yourself. You know, this is why when I tell people about therapy, you can't really go to therapy unless you have something that you really need to fix and it's actually affecting your life, or you actually want to try it. And you want to go to therapy and you're accepting of it and you give it a chance, that's when you'll actually start seeing results. Because when I first started, I was very against it. Yet, however, I met the right therapist and I was able to be comfortable in the conversation, I was comfortable in the environment, and I was able to open up because the original reason I went was for something that was affecting my actual life. That ended up turning into self-discovery and self-improvement, and I was always a fan of that type of stuff. But to actually get there, it required something that wasn't originally supposed to happen. So in a way, an issue arose, and I had to save myself from it. No one else saved me from it. They advised me to get help, but no one said, you're going to help tomorrow. You have to do it. I had to make that decision myself. And I think that is the most important thing to take away from this video, is that if there's someone in your life right now who's on a dark path, don't force them to change. Do everything you can to help them, but never put someone down because they can't change. Don't act like someone is below you because they're unable to change. You have to let people find the will within themselves to change. And obviously, if there's an extreme where you need to take action, of course do that. But on the general sense, it's best to leave people alone, or at least try and inspire them to be better. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy who talks over Minecraft gameplay. But anyway, that's it for today's video. Sorry for the lack of uploads. You know, we've always got stuff going on. I don't like to talk about things that I don't actually have, you know, somewhat of an experience or opinion on. I feel like if I just start talking about random topics, it would just be a bit mundane and inauthentic. So if you do have something you want me to chat about, put it in the comments below. Even if I don't know something about it, I'll look into it. I'll do a little bit of research. I'll give my 2 cents on it. But luckily, there's so many things that happen in people's lives. Most of the stuff I can at least, very least, have some sort of story, or I've witnessed it before. But anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.